Hi everybody and welcome to today's session of the SME Business with myself, Jamie Heslip. We're delighted to be joined again, I must add, by Colin Harmon. We interviewed Colin a few weeks ago. We're going to be honest, the file was corrupt on Zoom. We don't know how it happened. We had a really good chat for an hour, didn't we, Jamie? It was brilliant.
That was probably our best yet, so no pressure on the follow-up.
Yeah, it probably was. It was up there anyway. So for some reason, record didn't take, and to rewind, it was discovered when Colin logged into the Zoom a couple of weeks ago. Myself and Colin actually went to school together, and actually many moons ago, almost 20 years ago now. And we haven't seen each other since, so we had this lovely rekindle. We can't recreate. But Colin, listen, thanks again for giving us the time. I know you're actually up to the eyeballs, so it was mortifying having to reach out again. So I do appreciate it, much appreciated.
Not at all. Happy to be here again. Not sure there'll be a third time though.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully next time I interview you is when 3D is taking over the whole globe, and it's hard to get in touch with you. But for those that don't know, Colin is the founder and CEO of 3FE Coffee, and it's an amazing brand. I genuinely do. I said this the last time. I'm going to probably say this a few times for this interview. I was really intrigued to get Colin on the line. Didn't realize we knew each other. I was really intrigued by the last interview because I was seeing the brand everywhere. I've seen the story successfully build. Jamie was a big fan of the coffee as well, which he's promoted himself before on his own Instagram stories and various different platforms because he thinks it's a really good story as well. So Colin, let's go back to that was my sound there. Apologies. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's forget about COVID-19 for a second. Let's go back to the beginning. Where did you start your career? How did you end up in 3FE? And let's take the viewers and listeners through that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think like I've worked in hospitality since I was about 15. I worked in McDonald's on Grafton Street, so it was like the busiest restaurant in the country by a country mile at that stage. And it was, if you can go back that far, I think you can kind of remember there wasn't any mobile phones or anything like that. So you'd kind of, if you're going into town to meet your mates, you'd have to meet at McDonald's and Grafton Street. That's where you met. Because if you lost track of your friends, whatever that was, you had to go walk around the city and look for them. So McDonald's and Grafton Street was like a hub for the city centre. Place was absolutely rammed all the time, and I knew that like from the first day I was there, just queues out the door, banging through orders. I just like, oh, this is for me. I just loved the buzz of the industry. So all the way through university and school, I was working in restaurant bars and cafes. And just kind of getting money to get through college, so I get a proper job. And at the far end of that, I got a proper job. No offense, Paul, in finance, but and it was a good job. It was like a good career path. I didn't know that, but I was like, this is not for me. And I realized that everything I've been doing up until that point was kind of what I wanted to actually do. So I said I'd take a year out and I'd go see if I could start a career in hospitality. And about 3 months after I left my job, the world economy collapsed, so there was no going back. So at that stage, I entered the Irish Barista Championships, which is kind of like, they always say that the Barista Championships is like the Rose of Tralee for coffee. And I entered that. I accidentally won the thing, and then I was going to the World Championships. So
hold on, you accidentally won. I don't remember the last time. You accidentally won the
how do you accidentally win something?
I don't know.
That's modest. That's probably just being modest, is it? You don't just accidentally win the Barista Championship. I presume it was a big competition, is it?
It was like, and the people are like, at this stage, for context, I was working as a barista with Coffee Angel, and I wasn't even allowed steamed milk, right? And
that's priceless.
So with this competition, so I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be making the best coffee. So there's other things that are at stake here. So I got a friend of mine to help me with the sourcing the coffee. So I said, well, I can know more about the coffee. That's something that that I can affect. When I get up on the stage, you've got to do a 15-minute presentation. I said, my presentation has to be the best, and I don't need to know anything about coffee to do that. I said, I can be more organized and I'd be more disciplined about this. So I did all of those things, and then just hoped like it makes some okay coffee. And I just won by like an absolute hair's breadth, and which is great. But the problem was then, okay, that I'm then I have to go to Atlanta to represent Ireland in the World Barista Championships, right? Now, the World Barista Championships, if you can picture this, is like 4,000 people in tiered seating cheering for cappuccinos, right? And you're competing against, you're competing against like 60 of the best baristas from all over the planet, right? And like, if you go look at like the Australian or the American or the British competitors, they'll have like, it's like a pit team at a Formula One. There's a guy in charge of cups and a guy in charge of jugs and a guy in charge of milk. It's proper.
And then the paddy turns up.
with a plastic bag and stuff in it. So we were hooked up there. I hadn't a clue what I was doing, like just really absolutely winging it, and somehow managed to finish fourth in the world.
Wow.
One of the judges said to me afterwards, he said like amongst the judges, because they keep the judges together for a lot of time now, and he said like, you were like definitely in contention. Then we found out you'd only been doing this a year, and we said, oh, we can't let him win. I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of wish you didn't tell me that, but anyway. But yeah, so I come back to Dublin. I'm the fourth best barista in the world, and I don't have a job. I'm like, and at this stage, it's 2009, and most people don't. Like, it's different now, but if I said to somebody like, oh yeah, I'm a barista, they'd be like, do you work in the forecourts? Like, they don't, there was no understanding of what that word meant, you know? So I didn't have any money to set up a job. The world economy had collapsed, or to set up a shop. So there wasn't, I had job offers in the UK, Norway, in the US and stuff, but I wanted to do something in Dublin. I felt it was an opportunity. So I got a lend of about $5,000 off my dad, and a friend of mine had a nightclub on Abbey Street, and he couldn't get people to come into the nightclub during the day because it's a nightclub. And he said, look, sure, there's the lobby there. You can set up a coffee shop. If you start making money, you can pay rent. If you don't, what have you lost? So on the 5th of December 2009, I opened up a one-man coffee shop in the lobby of the Twisted Pepper on Middle Abbey Street, and was laughed off the park for about 3 months. But slowly, bit by bit, I think like our first day we had, I think, 16 customers. I'd say half of them were family and friends. And then the next day we had 17, and the day after that we had 18, and then the day after that we had 19. And then
that's just phenomenal, isn't it? Such a, like, it's an amazing story how it started.
It seemed very sane at the time, you know. We're like, looking back, I was like, what was I thinking?
Colin, just talk us through, how difficult was it to leave the finance job after studying so hard in college? I think a lot of people maybe underestimate how important that college background is and that college education, although it was finance. Did you find much of the learnings from college, or the kind of the experience was able to be used straight away in number one, your presentation skills are obviously good to get through the finals, that helps. From a business point of view.
Yeah, well, like, I think at the time I saw it as a bad thing. Like, my dad is an engineer, and my sister did an engineering degree as well. And they kind of come out of college and like, I'm an engineer, you know. And I kind of envy people like that, because I did business and legal studies in UCD. So I come out of college and I'm like, I'm a business and legal studies guy. I didn't really know what that was. And that's good. I ended up working as a trustee in investment funds, which was kind of a nice balance between business and law. But so at the time, I was like, I was kind of finding it difficult to find what I did. But then I think, like, when I look back, like when I was a kid, I got my first job when I was 15. Actually, I worked a few times before, just like on building sites with my dad, or he got me a job in a builders providers as well. But I worked all the way like through school, and like in a gun club, in restaurants, in like a golf club, all sorts of random different things. Like, and he was always encouraging me to go and do, you know, random jobs. And like at the time, I just didn't really see any logic or reason to it. But now looking back, you get a different perspective on all different sort of industries, even at that young age, you know, and it helps. And then when you do such a broad undergraduate course as well, that also helps. So by the time you get spat out the far side with the hospitality experience I had quite a broad perspective of things. So within the course that I did, you've got marketing, you've got accounting, you've got, you know, revenue law, you've got company law, all these different things. And like, yeah, my granny used to always say to me, like, you know, knowledge doesn't have any weight. You just take it with you, you know. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. So having a broad perspective, I think, like when you're running a business, you kind of need to be the jack of all trades. So I think it definitely stuck to me in the end, you know.
That's a good point, Colin, because I mean, like prior to COVID, I mean, there was a lot of cafes opening up, and I think I remember reading an article about like, you know, there was a trend where people were starting to get worried about the longevity of people opening up a lot of cafes. Now, at the time, you kind of, in terms of having, you know, specialty coffee and having knowledge and going deep on it, there were, at the time in 08, 09, there wasn't really specialist coffee. You had, I think you had Butlers, you had Bewley's, I don't even know if McDonald's had their Mac Cafe at that stage. But what do you, kind of to Paul's point, do you think when starting out, people like when you look back now, do you think people underestimate, or you underestimated the range of skills that you would need? You know, the combination of, okay, yeah, I can make a good coffee, but I need to know about the finances here. I need to know about the different laws and company laws and hiring employees and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that helped you? And do you think people underestimate that range of skills that's needed and the work that's needed? Sorry.
Yeah, like I think definitely. So I come out of college with a business degree, and I think I've been back to talk to some classes in different business skills over the years, and I'm like, don't be under the impression that you're going to step out now and you're going to get everything. That's not how it is. Like it's an absolute slog, you know. So I think it's being able to set up and run a company takes a lot. There's a lot more skills than you can imagine you need in the first place. I think like there's definitely times when I felt like it was absolutely no use to me whatsoever, you know what I mean? Like, but then at the same time, when you're going through it, like you find yourself just having different perspectives on things at different times. Like when I started off, I think one thing that I suppose seemed like a disadvantage at the time, but now I look back and it was a great thing, was that the shop that I had was really small. It was like a one-person shop, and it was like a sandbox for me. So I could make some mistakes and learn what to do. Okay, so I'm getting used to like rosters and staff, but there's me and one other dude. Okay, like, so I can afford to make some mistakes, or getting used to cash out. I remember there was one day when I was almost in tears. I was talking to my dad, like, oh, I'm absolutely tagged here, you know, I'm gonna have to close the business. And he was like, why? I was like, I just don't have money to pay all these debts and stuff. And he was just like, how much is it? And I was like, oh man, there must be like 400 quid here or something that I owe. And he just laughed at me. He was like, here, there's 400 quid, just pay and go back to you. And I'm like, I'm a young man with like a business degree. You think I'd understand that better, but no, but like when you're in the thick of it, you just think this is a nightmare. I can't do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always say that if I'd have started off with like, you know, a shop on, you know, a high street in Dublin with a 60 grand a year rent and a team of 8 to 10 staff or something, I wouldn't have lasted 6 months.
Like, so building from the ground up then has definitely helped the longevity of the business and
and learning what you're good at and what you're not good at, and getting to the stage where you can't do everything. You need to have an understanding of everything, but you can't do everything, and understanding what you need to outsource, you know, and what skill sets you need to bring in. So it ended up being a good thing for me, because I had a year or so, probably maybe even 2 years, of just making an absolute mess of everything, man, learning from it. But like, it's
not having massive consequences because you had massive staff or massive rent or whatever else.
Like I see people, especially in hospitality, I see people getting into like opening cafes or restaurants now and having no experience, coming in and like borrowing, you know, $500,000 and off you go. And it's like, best of luck with that, you know. Like I was lucky that at the time I had no mortgage, no kids, no real overheads. And at the time, like, it's a bit of a risk. And people say, oh, you took such a risk leaving that job. When I left the job, like, there was a boom in finance. Like, a lot of my compatriots were taking a year off, going to Southeast Asia for a year, coming back, getting a pay rise just to take their old job back, you know. So I left in full knowledge that I could have that option when I came back. I didn't know that the world economy would have collapsed 3 months later, you know, so the bridges burned behind. But at the time, it didn't seem like a risk. And in the greater scheme of things, like, it's my wife had a good job, and, you know, I've got a family around me, all that kind of stuff. So there was lots of supports there for me. So I feel very thankful for those as well. You know?
So, Colin, from you and the Twisted Pepper, with one staff member every now and again giving you a dig, how many staff have you got now in the whole operation?
Well, pre-COVID, I think we had somewhere in the region of 54 staff.
Wow.
And I think at this stage we have about somewhere in the early 30s back at work now. So like,
right, that's amazing. So talk us through how you got out of Twisted Pepper to be one of the best known brands in Ireland from a coffee point of view.
Yeah, so like we set up the business was going well. Like, definitely everybody was into it. Like, we had the ear of all the, you know, the food critics and all the keyboard warriors on the internet and stuff. And like, it was at the time Twitter was a big thing. So it was a business driven by Twitter. It was all word of mouth on Twitter, and that's where we're going. And it was growing fast. But what I did notice was that there was lots of people coming and looking what we're doing. So lots of, you know, sales reps, lots of restaurant bars, cafe owners coming, and you'd see them there taking notes and trying the coffee. It was very different to what was available in other places back then. And I could see people were just kind of like, oh yeah, like, you know, just really taking it all in and see what we were getting at. And I knew that we were making a little bit of money, nothing spectacular, but we weren't moving fast enough to capitalize on the opportunity. So the guy that had been roasting my coffee for the Barista Championships is a guy called Steve Layton, and he ran a roastery in the UK called Has Been. And I called Steve. He was roasting coffee for our shop as well. So I called him. I said, listen, there's an opportunity here. I'm not going to be able to capitalize on it fast enough. So here's what I'll do. You let me wholesale your coffee in Ireland, And when we reach critical mass, we'll build a roastery in Ireland and start roasting here. And he was like, all right. And he was like, what do I get? I said, well, I'll give you half the business. So he was like, I think at the time he was like, great, you got a little cart in a nightclub. Thanks a lot. So he owned half the cart in the nightclub, but he was like, we get on well. He's like, oh, you know, this is worth a punt anyway. So we didn't have any contracts or anything like that. It was just like a mate's agreement. That was it. So we did that. Within a month, we had Fallon and Byrne signed on as our first wholesale customer, which is probably the most prestigious coffee shop in the city. Like, I think all the coffee reps come and just go, how did you get them to sign up? I don't know is the short answer, but they signed up, and then very soon, like I think within about a year, we had half a ton of coffee. And then like building a roastery, like when we started roasting, there was, I think I counted maybe 12 roasteries in Ireland. I think recently there was a countdown of about 250, and even this week I've seen 3 new ones pop up. And that's in the space of 7 years. So it's difficult to do it, especially if you've got high standards, because buying the green stock that you want it's difficult to come across really good coffee, and then you have to buy all the stock if you're buying it directly from the farmers, and then you've got to have the warehouse, and you've got to have the roaster and all these other things. So it's easy to get into, and it's very difficult to do well. And I think the fact that the day we started roasting coffee, we had half a ton to get to that week meant that we had critical mass, you know. So it was a good way to avoid risk and to ramp up pretty quickly. So last year we roasted about 110 tons. We roast coffee for 5 our own shops, and then we send coffee. Like this week we'll send, or maybe not this week, but most weeks we send coffee to Thermofec and then China and Alaska and everywhere in between. So it's it's been a bit mad.
That is absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? Like, it's just, I know we did this interview before, and I'm genuinely still blown by the story, as in how quickly it goes from, you know, a coffee cart in the front of a nightclub in Abbey Street to roasting that much coffee.
Can I just say,
like, it's actually
the best bit about the nightclub, okay, is that like, I don't know if you ever went there. Now, Twisted Pepper had quite
I remember
a reputation, and I didn't know, I was never there after dark, but anyway, what you do is I'd be opening the coffee shop on a Saturday morning, and some lad would come in, and we'd have the coffee shop as a collapsible thing. It was all on wheels. We just make it disappear. And some lad would come in on a Saturday morning looking for his jacket that he left behind, and he'd walk in the door and he'd see me stand there at the machine, and all the counters were like, and he'd walk out and he'd look up at the sign. They'd come back in and go, man, I must have had a lot to drink last night. I don't remember any of this.
I thought, Colin, you were going to see lads coming out of the nightclub when you were setting up.
That happened a few times as well. Yeah. A lot sleeping upstairs once. So it was
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Interesting.
Come here, Colin. In terms of, so I mean, look, you build the company up, and it's you know, you go from half a ton to what you say, just over 100 tons, let's say, in January that you're roasting, and you're selling it all over the world. And then you have, at that stage as well, I'll never forget you saying to me that you're only ever going to have one shop, and now you have how many shops?
We have 5.5. Half is the van. We've got a van at the Burnage shop at the moment. So it's actually outperforming some of those shops. So
you've scaled the business up. You have 54 employees, and then we start seeing this kind of wave starting in the east, kind of come across the world. You know, where's your head at in January, February, when you start to see these trends pop up in terms of your business, and is this going to affect this? Is it not? You know, where does your head start going?
Do you mean in terms of COVID-19 or in terms of?
Yeah, sorry. In terms, so you start seeing the trends coming from, you know, in terms of COVID-19. Okay, there's something happening here in China. Okay, now it's kind of spreading. Okay, there's a cluster in Italy. You know, where does your head go? Because I know you have a connection with Italy.
Yeah, so I do some consultancy work at a company called Caramali, and we're developing an espresso machine that will work the same as every other espresso machine, but it works off domestic power. It uses induction heating, so it uses like 95% of power. So it's like tested to the combustion engine basically for espresso machines. So I'm doing a lot of work with them, and I'm back and forth quite a lot. So they're based in Bergamo, which is basically, you know, it's ground zero in Europe for COVID-19. So I was early doors and got quite a lot of insight into what was happening there. And when a lot of people in Ireland were very kind of, well, it's over there, we'll only get here. I was getting daily texts and phone calls about it. So I was getting a very real life insight into it. So I think we were probably very quick to move on the back of that. Like, and the teams we have are very responsible. They want to make sure things are done properly. So it's, yeah, I don't know, like it felt, I think there was a day somewhere, I think it was around the 8th of March or something like that, where we put a post online, and just, it was just very small things. This is very early doors now. We just said, like, we're not going to do any more handshakes. You know, we're going to clear out a few tables. We're just going to do paper cups only. And at the time, there was a bit of like, lads, listen, what are you doing? But at the same time, we felt like it was a necessary step to take, you know, because a lot of, like, the staff are interacting with a lot of people all the time.
Yeah.
And then it genuinely felt, like I said, this is something recently, it genuinely felt like we were making a crucial decision, like every 7 minutes after that, you know, like it just kept ramping up and up and up. And that's like, that's a difficult thing about running a business, you know. It's something that looks really effortless, is making decisions. Like, for the outside, you just decide and move on, that's it. But when you're the one making decisions, it's really, really difficult. And I'll always say to people, this is like, you know, you get to decide or complain, you know what I mean? You can't do both, you know. And it's easy to sit there complaining about other people's decisions, but when you're the one making the decisions, that's difficult. And in fairness, we have a good cohort of people within the business that step up and make good decisions. And I think we got some stuff wrong, but we got a lot of stuff right. And I think what we did, without really even planning it, it was kind of like, we all had a strong understanding of it, that what we do is coffee. And as long as we can keep selling coffee, we'll be okay. So if we can keep selling coffee, we can keep the roastery going, we can keep the shops going. We can, I mean, there's tons of coffee, like tens of tons of coffee heading to us at all times from all over the world. And if we've already paid for that, or we've committed to it, so we need to get rid of that coffee. So that means that we have to keep it going. So one thing, we're blessed in a few ways, because like we have, we probably overspec'd our website for the last few years. And as a consequence of that, like, I think web sales were up like tenfold or something in this period. Like, it was absolutely crazy, but we were able to deal with it. And I know other businesses have set up online shops, and I've tried to be helping the field and chatting to, but it's an absolute nightmare. Like, Jamie, you think working with contractors is difficult, but you go online, like it's that sort of stuff is even more. Because like,
well, actually on that, just before you kind of get into that, Colin, in terms of, you seem to have had this kind of either in your head or on paper, I don't know, but you seem to have had a roadmap or a business plan. So, you know, you had one shop. You said, if we get to a certain amount of business, we're going to open a roastery. Then you have, okay, you know, you lied through your teeth to me, but you said, you know, we're going to only have one shop, and then open a couple more shops. And then you say you overspec the website. However, it's paying off now. Do you believe in, or do you have this kind of evolving roadmap, business plan, kind of future strategic thinking?
So I don't know if you know Alan Coleman, who runs Wolfgang Digital. So I know Alan a long time now. I used to work with his partner in a cafe in Dunleary. And Alan is a great businessman, but Alan will tell you that, like, you know, he's expecting 11% growth on these 3 years, 8% here. And he's very, like, everything is very, like, precise. And I used to look at him kind of go, God, I'm such a fraud. This guy has everything figured out. Because everything was like numbers and data and all this other stuff. And it took me a while to kind of figure out that, like, everybody has their own way of doing things. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, like, where do you see this going? I'd say, you know, like, you know, a number of shops around the place, big roastery, selling stuff online, shipping stuff around the world, doing machine sales, training skill, all that kind of stuff. I could see the scope of that. Now, I don't think I'd be one of those people who say this is definitely going to happen, but that's what I envisage happening. And the pace we go at, I suppose, is a difficult thing. But I would always be very optimistic about where we go. Now, sometimes I get too optimistic about these things, and it takes a little bit of time to catch up with that optimism. But in general, like, I think I'd have a vague understanding of where I'd want that business to go. And I definitely try to be more, or tend to be more instinctive with planning. But then you have to back that up with hard numbers and facts and stuff. So, like, there's a good team around me who are probably a lot more rational in their thinking about things. So I come with them with daft ideas, and
so you come with you essentially from the top down come with the vision / ambition, and then they kind of go, yes, or actually, Colin, you're mad with that idea.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, it's
told to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, there's a difference between creativity and innovation. I think there's people like talk a lot about creativity and innovation, don't really understand it. And creativity to me is just like, this is a messy sphere of just like throwing out ideas and lashing things up and suggesting things and breaking things, all this, and like looking for problems where there aren't any, just like going and kicking up the dust and go, well, actually, what about that? Could that be better? And everybody's like, oh, leave that alone. And you're like, that kind of stuff. So and doing that sort of stuff is messy and it's frustrating for people that aren't in that. And it's a very, it doesn't have a time scale. It's very messy sort of work. The innovation process starts for me when you've solidified what that idea is. You say, well, actually, we're going to start doing strawberry milkshakes, and this is what it's going to taste like, and that's what it's going to look like. Good. So then you draw a line in the sand and go, Grant, okay, we're going to start them in 2 weeks' time. This is the recipe. This is the margin. This is how much we're going to buy the cups off. This is how often we need to buy the cups. This is where the lids are going to come from. This is the shop. These are the shops we're going to sell it in. We need to buy 3 of these machines to make it happen. And all of a sudden, the logistics stuff. So the innovation is bringing it to market. Now, you definitely, like, we all know very creative people who don't do very much, you know what I mean? Or just very flaky sort of people, you know. And I think the innovation people get the short end of the stick. Like, they don't get the credit they deserve, because the people who are seen as just doing the rudimentary bang, 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 like stock management and planning and forecasting and costings and accounts, it's all very unsexy stuff. But that's what innovation is. You know what I mean? And they're kind of like
making shit happen. Really, that's basically what it is.
Like, it's almost, I almost ban them as an example, but like when people say who's an innovative company, you say it's Apple. Apple are a really innovative company. Now, if you look at something as simple as like the iPod, okay, they didn't invent that. There was loads of examples of technology like that, but they had the innovation to bring it to market.
Their latest release last night of all these different widgets and stuff. So I'm just laughing at Apple because they very rarely actually come up with an original idea. They just make old ideas better or execute better on
executing. That's exactly, it's executing.
Yeah.
Like bringing it to market, like, and following up and bringing in systems and stuff. That's what innovation is. The creative side of it gets all the credit, but it's not really where it always lies.
Yeah, it's not where it happens. Yeah, it's not where it happens. More on a couple of things you mentioned there. One thing is your connection in Italy. So how did you meet that connect in Italy? Do you mind me asking, or was that through traveling the world, like, through the Barista Championships, or how did that come around?
So I think, like, when we started to do wholesale and we started to roast, you're meeting coffee shops and they're like, you know, oh yeah, we want to buy coffee, so we want to set up. And most of the businesses we deal with are ones that want to start. They're startup businesses. They always need espresso machines and grinders and all sorts of stuff. This is an opportunity there. So there was a company that were supporting the World Barista Championships, and I was involved in that, called Nova Simonelli. So they asked me to come on board as a consultant. So I helped develop grinders and espresso machines with them. And then as part of that, they allowed us access to their equipment. So we can import their equipment and sell them on to people that want to open coffee shops. So it becomes an extra branch of the business. Now, like, I think when you're running any business, it's easy to add stuff. It's difficult to take stuff away. So like, for a long time, we were trying to build up this wing of doing like installations and stuff and shop design and stuff. And it was like, no, that's getting too messy. So it seems like we've got a lot of strings to our bow. We've actually been quite disciplined about what we do take on. So the espresso machines and grinders work well for us, but we have an engineering company that we get into. They basically resell the machines, and they take them from us, they install them, and that's done. So that's their skill set. So their business thrives off the back end, and so does ours. So it's not something that we want to get into. So we've been quite disciplined in those ways.
Right. Okay.
So, and then over the years, like Caramali was another company. They came to me recently and said that they'd developed this new technology with induction heating for espresso machines. I was like, right, I'm all over that. I want to have a look at that. So that's been ongoing for about a year now. So
again, the connections really started with back to that kind of, not say fluke, but as you said yourself, you kind of from the point of view of getting to the World Championship, gives you these connections to keep on from a business point of view, which one gives you the heads up on COVID-19 and makes you a bit more aware. The other thing I wanted to touch base on is the business, it's not a business plan, which is, you mentioned you had a vision for the company. And it's, you know, you've seen the vision yourself and it's played out well, obviously. So the other thing from the business plan is the website. So do you notice that when you put the business plan in place, you know, some of the kind of guys going to sit down and do a massive business plan for the next 10 or 15 years. If you have the vision, you just bring the company that way. But it was very easy for you to pivot back into, I suppose, website sales ASAP, because you already laid the groundwork on that. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to get here is for people that watch us or listen, you know, from a business planning point of view, you make it sound very easy. Like, you know, we had a website, so, you know, we just revamped that up again. But the planning and the effort that goes into that, because you said yourself, there wasn't that much sales going through your website pre-COVID-19, was there? It wasn't a big thing for you guys.
Oh well, it was fairly substantial anyway. It's just
Right.
bonkers now, basically. Like, and when it started off, like all aspects of our business, like with a wholesale, we only did wholesale in Dublin originally, and then once we got, and it was just like get good at that, you know, and then once that was our way, we started to we started in Ireland, and we only did Ireland for a long time, and then we've only been doing international about 2 years now, I think.
Right,
So
okay.
I'm very much of the mind that you should just like, you know, expand at the right rate, just to build, you know, the systems and procedures in place. Like, because if you just try to do everything at once, I see this a lot. Like, I feel for a lot of businesses at the moment because they're just trying to sell stuff whatever way they can, and there's no discipline to what they're doing. And the problem with any sort of business, like the internet, you talk to anybody that's setting up internet companies, and it's like, oh, the scalability is, well, this is amazing. But the problem is that if you have a problem, and then you start to scale it, you scale that problem, which is not a good thing. You know what I mean? So scalability works both ways, you know.
Jamie, in fairness, that was very like what Grania had said from Bujo Burgers. Remember, Grania was saying that
with the home kits.
Sandyford, then they went, or Sandymount, then they went outside Sandymount, but they couldn't go any further because of distribution. People were kind of not getting their food online. They were dealing with the couriers that weren't getting the food there. They were getting bad reviews, and they had to stop it because they didn't want to scale a problem, which is really clever but some people do get overshadowed, really, don't they, Colin, in relation to
I'll give you an example there. Okay, so we had a really busy weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they're all in roasting it and posting it and the coffee, right? Tuesday morning comes, so it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, just hammering out coffee and sending out, right? Tuesday morning, we get an email, right? Now, on the previous Thursday, we got in delivery of a brand new batch of bags, all right? So Tuesday morning, email comes in, customer said, oh, I got this coffee in the post and it burst. Now, instantly I'm thinking, we've just sent thousands of packages all over the world, and they're just all bursting at the moment. This is like 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Huh? Now, it turns out that was actually just one bag. It's fine. There's not an issue. You know what I mean? But like, it's an example of how if you scale something, you know, and there isn't processes and procedures in place, you know, you have a big problem. That one we got off, and it would actually turn out to be just one bag, touch wood. Maybe the person off there.
But again, if you did something wrong multiple times, it literally can snowball.
Yeah, and some of those problems are in America, and some of them are in Russia now, and some of them are in, you know, it's expensive to fix all those problems. And then, you know, it's a difficult thing. And I've seen this and talked to a lot of people at the moment who are trying to pivot into new areas, which is admirable. But like, you really have to focus on what is achievable and what is scalable, because if you can, you know, generate sales in line. There's a real thing at the moment where businesses are trying new things, and everybody's getting behind them on Twitter. Go, oh, you can do this. It's great. You have to support these people, and there's a lot of goodwill there. But then as soon as it goes wrong, it's you know, it can get very sour.
In fairness, you talked about kind of doing what you do, which is like, you know, doing good coffee and getting it to people. And sticking to like outsourcing the installation part of your business, you know, which other businesses could be like, oh, we're going to keep that on because that's another revenue.
It's chasing turnover,
yeah. And so you're sticking to your guns in terms of what your brand is and what it's about. In terms of the strengths that you've had throughout the years, what strengths do you think have helped you kind of ride this COVID wave to a certain degree over the last 4 months?
I think if I point to one thing is that the people that work for us are like adaptable and tenacious. And it sounds very like haughty, but like when we turn around to like members of our wholesale team and say, okay, you're packing boxes for the next few weeks until we're through this, they go, okay. Or you're talking to like roasters and saying, you need to do some deliveries today. They're like, cool. Or you're talking to the staff and saying, well, like, we're going to put up these screens here. We're going to take all the tables out. We're getting rid of all the menus. We're just going to do pastries, and you have to cook the pastries, and we're going to do coffees just you here, and that's it. They're like, cool, no problem, let's do it. And we like, they've been an absolute credit to us, because like without that will to do it and the adaptability, because like it's the same, it's always the same. Everybody wants things to improve, but nobody wants things to change. You know what I mean? It's such a dichotomy that it's a constant frustration. But like, if you want things to improve, you have to change. Like, you have to change something, and nobody wants to change. And we've had like, not that they haven't been complaining. There's been problems and complaints about what we're doing, but they come to us, go, listen, I don't think this is the best way to do it. How about this way? You know, and that's, as a business owner, that's brilliant when someone comes to you with a better idea. I'm like, let's do it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like, and we've had very little kickback at all, and they've really been great, you know. And without them doing this, I don't know. Like, I look at other businesses and I've been talking to other people, and they've been like, I've been trying to get the staff to do this and they're just not up for it. I'm like, can't do it then.
Yeah,
So they've been great, you know, they really have.
The team is really important, isn't it? I think everybody that's in good in business will realize that your business is built on your team first and foremost, and before your customers, because your team has to come first.
Yeah, and like it's not Disneyland, don't get me wrong, but like I mean, we do have a good culture of people just like picking holes in each other's work and saying, you know, could that be done better? Could this be done better? And it's like, you know, it gets a bit hairy at times, you know, but like everybody wants it, you know, there's a genuine need to improve and to do all that. And if you don't have that culture there and the openness to have people critique your work or come up with better ideas, and like, you know, it's not gonna work for you, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Colin, just so in relation to COVID-19, you got a heads up pretty early. You adapted the business very quickly. You pivoted into various different things. The internet blew up for you. The website blew up for you, which is brilliant. But just let me through where you are now. So COVID-19 is coming out the other end. We're coming out the other end of COVID-19. Sorry, we hope they're coming out the other end of COVID-19 pretty soon. So, how he's positioned, what's the plan for the future? I know you mentioned the espresso machine over in Italy. That's obviously sounds like a very exciting project. What have you learned from a business point of view about your business, and what do you hope to bring that into the future?
Yeah, well, like I think first off, thing I would say is that like there's been a lot of luck involved. Like I have a friend, Carlin Dorn, who runs Flatiron. I am no smarter than Carlin. He works just as hard as I do. But he runs like a hair salon, so he can't operate.
Yeah.
Done. You know what I mean? So people are saying, "Oh, you're doing a really kind of pivot. You did these changes. You're great. You see, keep going." And all that. I'm like, we sell coffee. Like we're very fortunate that we run a business that could keep going. Yeah. So there's a lot of people out there that just didn't have that opportunity. So you have to be mindful now. It's not just because I'm some sort of genius. It's just that we can sell coffee and people like drinking coffee. So
fair play for saying that, Colin. You know, take your hats off, because a lot of people out there think they're heroes or just.
I'm a genius for other reasons, though. Don't worry. But I think at the moment, like it's what we're seeing is like that online sales has gone up. Now, like when we started building the website, my business partner that I mentioned ran has been in the UK. Now they have phenomenal online sales. Now I think a lot of people look to the UK market and they say, well, the UK market is, you know, it's 13 times the population of the UK as there is in Ireland. Therefore, our online market is 1/13 of what theirs is, and it's not by any stretch of it. The UK market is by far the most advanced in the world. Now, in recent years, the Irish market like has started to catch up, and in the last 3 years, especially, the growth online has been phenomenal. I've seen a graph. I might send it to you after. It's quite interesting, and it kind of confirmed what we have experienced over the years. Is that like you see the graph moving up, and it kind of generally trends up in a year, and then it spikes around Christmas, and then after Christmas, it settles a little higher than what it was the year before, and then it starts to trend up, spikes around Christmas, and then it's been like that since 2006, every single year. Okay, now. It had done that like this all the way along the graph, and then it showed COVID-19. I was like, up here. This is very scientific now. Right about there. No, actually,
I'll measure that distance on the screen. Exactly. Yeah.
You're like in the Matrix there.
Yeah. So at the moment, we're kind of thinking, you know, well, actually, I don't think it's going to stay like this forever. Like the numbers are crazy online, but a lot of it will stay. A lot of it will stay. Yeah. Like. I don't know if either of you do like Tesco online or anything. It's not like
I've done that. Like I've done it for a long time. But yeah, a lot of people, like my parents, are now like, ooh, like why would I go? I might go to the shops for the odd bit, but the big shops
especially
will be done
kids.
online.
Yeah. And it's not the sort of thing that you go, oh, I'll treat myself to Tesco online every 6 months. You just generally do it and go, this is a no-brainer, and then you just keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like you might go to Super Value or one of the other ones in the meantime, but you kind of just keep doing it. So like I have a coffee subscription. So I have a Lucky Drip subscription, which is the thing we do where you come in and you punch in your credit card details. This works like Netflix. It takes some money every week and sends you coffee. And because I routinely would get home on a Friday evening like, oh, coffee. And just a bag of coffee arrives in the post. And even to this day, when I pull coffee out of the post box, I'm like, yeah, coffee. It feels amazing. And so that's going to keep going. So we anticipate that a lot of those sales will stay there. Now, at the moment, what's happening is that those sales are high and online. And also we have a lot of our wholesale customers coming back. So right now we're in a bit of a surge. So we're kind of making sure, keeping a close eye on our stock levels. But we don't think things are going to go back the same way. With the cafes then, like at the moment, we're running the same model at all the places. So we have the same menu board in all the places. We're doing like, you know, cappuccinos, espressos, filter coffee. We're doing iced cappuccinos and cold brew. And then we have, you know, brownies, coconut balls, flapjacks, 2 sandwiches and a sausage roll. And they all get prepped in one location, sent out and sold at those locations. And to be honest with you, we're just going to keep doing that. So everybody's saying, oh, is it like the 28th of June? I don't even know. They're like, oh, 28th of June, you can get tables and chairs back. Yeah, 29th. You can get tables and chairs and bring people back. I'm like, yeah, we're just going to do our thing. Now, like, we might do it on the 29th and bring people back in, but we're going to do it at our own pace. I think we have something that's safe for customers, safe for the staff. We sell a product that doesn't need a huge amount of other things out there. Like a lot of people are buying coffee online as well and sell it for home, so we can facilitate that as well. But we'll add the tables and chairs and bring the food aspect back at our own pace. We're in no rush to do that. Now, you might talk to me on the 30th of June and our sales might have dropped off the cliff because everybody's going to coffee shops and have seats, and then I'll be like, well, actually what we're going to do is. So we're still going to see, but we're in a position where we can change that quite quickly. So we know what it looks like to have a full service kitchen and a full menu, and we know what it looks like to do now. So we can pivot in from one to the other overnight. It's not a big deal.
It
but
seems,
we have to make sure
like,
that
Colin,
it's
that you, like the takeaway for me there is one of the values of your company. I don't know if this is written on a wall or not, but is that flexibility, adaptability to the plan. So yes, you might have a vision and a plan laid out, but you can flex. You know, you have the destination. You're starting here. You kind of have a roadmap, but like you might take a detour, but you'll still get to there. It's just a matter of timing and how you get there, really.
Yeah, we've done a lot of things over the years that have been in that sphere. Like it's like even like the machines that we have downstairs was the first espresso machine in the world to have a digital scales weighing out the espresso, which seems like probably nothing to you, right? So we get espresso.
It seems like a lot to me, Colin, but you don't have to preach to me.
It seems like it extracts to, I think, within half a gram of accuracy your espresso.
Oh,
right? Using a digital scales. So that was put in our shop. We're the first shop in the world to have that. It was in secret. Nobody knew it was there. We test drive for about 6-9 months. And it was a nightmare. For a long time, it was a nightmare. But the staff got used to, like, this is how innovation works. You get something in, it's a nightmare. It doesn't work. You have big complaints. You work around it. You change the software, do this. And at the end of that, you get the pat on the shoulder because, like, oh, well, actually, these are the guys that road tested this, you know. And there's a lot of things within the business where, you know, they're used to the fact that that's what you go through, that creative loop of, isn't this, there's a vague idea somewhere and this is a bit messy and nonsensical. And then it gets the innovation phase and we have to start putting in procedures and processes and changing things, which is the difficult thing. But we've been to that in nothing like this before, but definitely the staff has been very adaptable over the years and know that, like, we have to keep going, because if you keep doing what you're doing at the moment and you don't ever change, you're just, you know, nothing's going to work.
And on the tails of the innovation idea, Colin, now I know you guys have, like, you've done instant coffee, which is a bit an innovative product, which I think is a great idea, particularly for people kind of on the go. So you don't have to bring the whole kit along with you as such. Without, I suppose, showing or telling the trade secret, what other trends, let's say, you're leaning into, or what kind of innovative ideas? You touched on the induction in terms of changing up an espresso machine. I'm guessing the end goal of that is to make it more sustainable for people at home. What else are you leaning into and taking with learnings as well from COVID?
Well, I think, like, one of the interesting things about coffee, like, it's quite a social industry to be in, like, a lot more so than like, I don't know, like investment funds where I came from, whatever. But it's definitely an interesting community to be part of, and quite innovative as part of that. Sustainability is a big thing, so we have to keep focusing on that. So I think, like, trying to find ways to ensure that the waste that we're producing isn't too burdensome is quite a big thing. I think what for us is interesting as well is the dexterity of coffee, like how coffee can actually be applicable in so many different ways. And this is where coffee gets really interesting. So when specialty coffee started, it was a niche thing in niche shops by weird guys like me who wanted to, you know, like, and it was quite specific and expensive. And I always kind of related to what it was like with Wi-Fi. So when I was in business school, we had, well, to my knowledge, it was the first Wi-Fi building in the country. Okay, so you're like walking around with your laptop going, "I'm on the internet. This is crazy," and at the time, Wi-Fi was expensive. It was for geeks. It didn't always work very well, and it was, you know, poorly understood. And you see that, but it was kind of cool, and some people were interested. Now today, you expect Wi-Fi in airports and in hotels, and, you know, everywhere you go, you want to have free Wi-Fi. And it's a norm. And specialty coffee for me has taken that drive, you know. So we're hoping to open the coffee shop in the airport next year. We're doing instant coffee. Like there's lots of things that are very mainstream focused that if you'd asked me 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, it's not time. It's not time to do this. There's no public awareness of it. The capability isn't there. The technology isn't there. We can't do it. The competence isn't there. But today it is. So I'd be quite ambitious about, like, well, put it this way: where do you want nice coffee? Like, you want it everywhere.
Yeah,
you know what
everywhere.
I mean? Like in car showrooms. You want it in football stadiums. You want it in, I don't know, like Grafton Street. I mean, like this. All these things were just there. It wasn't possible years ago for lots of different reasons. But now the public awareness is there, so people understand. Because, like I think I said this to you last day, when we got in, or when I opened up the coffee shop, coffee was very much seen as like a caffeine conduit. Okay, so people drink coffee because they want to get a kickstart in the morning. That's it. So I'd equate it very similarly to, like, you're going into a wine shop, right? You walk into a wine shop, and you don't go into the guy and say, "Oh, I'd love something to get me absolutely hammered." Right? It's in the back of your mind that's part of the process. But definitely before that, you'd like something that you'd like to drink, like something you want to get, like a gamay, because you like light and fruity wines. Okay, so that's part of the process. And then also you're going to get shit faced as well. But that's, you're not really talking about that. Okay, so you come into the coffee shop, and it's a flavor experience. It's not just, I need something to wake me up in the morning so I'm not too cranky. You come in and go, actually, I like Brazilian coffees because I like that kind of chocolatey nuttiness. Or you want to try something, you want to get a Kenyan filter because you like the fruity, acidic aspects of it. And also, you could do it some caffeine because you hate your coworkers and you need something to get you going. So, like, that
I thought you said you like all your coworkers, Colin.
I said you, Jamie, not me.
Oh, right, sorry.
So I think that dual aspect of it is now there, that people understand that coffee can be different prices, have different flavor profiles, and be of different quality. And that's crucial now. So now we can scale it. As long as we don't have the problems to scale with it.
You're dead right. It's very like the Wi-Fi thing, actually. It's a very good analogy, and it is something that people do expect now. And you often hear people moaning about a bad cup of coffee now, where that wasn't around 10, 15 years ago. You get whatever it was. So it is. And look, Colin, I must say, I keep saying this about everyone we interview, but I'm talking about breath of fresh air, but, it's so laid back, and you can just ooze calmness. I don't know like how we can work in business, but I like the way you're very modest in relation to what you've achieved. But I must say thanks a million for doing the interview with myself and Jamie, because I think your story is just something that everybody that's starting off needs to hear. And why I was so intrigued to get you on, so myself and Jamie, one of the first things we discussed when we did our own kind of interview together, we did it every week during COVID to help people pivot and think of new ideas. The first thing we said is, God, imagine all the coffee shop owners that have just set up, because it is a booming industry. A lot of people maybe think it's a bit easier to get into. You might need that much. It doesn't sound too difficult. Relation, if you got the barista course, you got something, you could probably give it a go. So I hope that this interview really helps everybody in that sector, but anyone thinking of business really needs to listen to this and listen to your story and how you've implemented from such a small scale into growing a phenomenal company that's exporting out past Ireland, and looking after Irish customers as well. And it's just phenomenal. And congratulations to you. It's brilliant. And the reason we do this show is to listen to people like you. So I must say I'm chuffed to have you on again, and apologies about the last time.
Thank you very much.
Your time is much appreciated, and best of luck for the future. And I wish you all the success with the company and family and everything like that.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks very much. Great to see you again after all these years as well.
Yes, likewise.
Colin, I'll probably see you like next week.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. You're not fired still, no?
Boom, let's put it there. All right, cheers, Colin. Thanks again.
Cheers, Colin. Take it easy, lads.
See you.
Jamie, Colin's dead, isn't he? I must say he's brilliant, and it's great.
Yeah, I love his calmness. I love his calm focus.
Yeah, and he's so modest in relation to he doesn't, like, I don't know, it's just weird. Maybe many people go around patting themselves on the back saying how great they are. And no one that we've interviewed has done that either, in fairness to them. But I don't know, just with the success story, one man in a coffee shop and Twist of Pepper, to what he's after achieving in such a short space of time.
It strikes me like, okay, he's trying to remain humble and stuff, but I definitely get a sense of confidence from him, which he has built off the body of work that he's done. Like you don't get best in Ireland or fourth in the world by luck. You don't.
No, you don't.
Right?
It doesn't happen.
Right.
No.
And so he's put the work in, and then obviously he's put the work in since opening his shop, and he never rushed into things. He very much kind of got very good at what he was doing and then expanded a little bit more. Just like had the one shop. Okay, we get to a certain amount of volume, then we'll roast. Okay. Now we're at capacity in those. Then let's expand the shop. Okay, we're going to do commercial. We're going to do commercial, but only in Dublin. Okay, let's master that. Okay, we're going to do all of Ireland. Let's master that. Now we're going abroad. So, like there's methodology and a process there, as well as staying very authentic. Like in terms of his leadership style, he's very authentic, which is really impressive, and obviously seems like. Switches between like not authoritarian, or kind of when he needs to make the hard decisions, he makes them, but then he's also goes into a coaching mode to coach different
you can see that.
people along the way. So he's very good at flexing around the different leadership styles as well, and staying true to the brand, which is very important.
One of the things he said, and would probably stay me for a long time, man, this is why I look at it, obviously from a businessman point of view. I love listening to other business people. I think it's great. And that's why I love doing these SME series, is because it should be giving people a lot of knowledge. But scaling the problem, I love that. You can scale until you got a really good slick process, a good operation, a good understanding of what you're good at and what you're doing, before you go after the big numbers or the big turnover. And know what you're good at by outsourcing the installation process, for argument's sake, he said, where he's not trying to be all things to all people, which is very hard a business to do, especially if you're kind of not chasing turnover, especially if you're chasing the success. You wanted the company to do well, you're creating employment and everything's flying, but it's easy to get distracted away from what you're doing. But I must say, he's an absolute legend. I'm glad to hear that he's in business. He's been brought back into maybe like the UCD or other business colleges to have a chat with students as well, because I think he's something that you can learn a lot more off of. So I think it's great. And if you're listening, hope you got something from that. Listener watching to this, I do hope you got something from that with Colin. I've no doubt you did. Like with all our guests, but they're all very similar, Jamie. They're literally the same patterns are merging. Good business plan, good understanding, good communication, knowing what's going on, being able to quick to pivot, having a good team. And it just goes to show it's not actually rocket science, but you have to be able to pull it off.
And you have to be willing to put the work in. I think one thing that kind of stands out, particularly with cafes, is that people think they just open, they go, oh, coffee, serious margin on that. You just have to open it up. You're going to print money. Exactly. And he said, in fairness to him, he kind of said, like, if I had to open up in Dublin now and pay 60 grand rent and have 8 employees from the start, I wouldn't have gone 6 months. You know what I mean? And I think people need to realize that, especially if they're starting their own business, that they got to go into it and probably grind that out for 12 months, you know what I mean? And kind of scale grind that out.
I like that pun there.
Hey.
See what you did there.
But it's like Colin's always been a really interesting guy to kind of bang ideas off him and kind of learn from him. But, it was just really interesting to see how he relied a lot on his strengths and use them with the kind of the opportunities that were kind of in front of him, then saw what the reality was, and then kind of aim for the goal as such, to get the return on it.
You know what else I loved though as well? He was saying that he was just lucky to be in coffee, and that obviously coffee could survive through COVID-19. He wasn't here, but got to remember this guy left a really, really well-paid job in finance, which is a trustee for investment funds. Now he left on the premises. He did say that he was going to come back and just walk into probably a pay rise before the world crashed. But then pivoted back into, got a complete change into something he wanted. Not many people do that. Most people sit at their desk, pissed off, complaining for the rest of their life. So I love the fact that this guy actually went, you know what, I might have a law degree, might be trustee, might have a big packet there. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to open a coffee shop. Like, imagine I always find that people don't make the right decisions because of fear of what other people will say or think. Imagine leaving that kind of job or not being offered big money in big corporate world and saying, no, I'm going to set up a coffee shop in the Twisted Pepper on my own. Like,
no, his circumstances did help. He didn't have any dependence on him or anything like that, and so he didn't have to have his level of need for certainty probably wasn't as high. But you're dead right. Like, but the other thing is trends, you know what I mean? Like with trends, they always start out like kind of obscure and a little bit niche, and then they kind of come mainstream. And he, like you and I have talked about this, like, you know, and I've talked with all different sort of people. Like kombucha for a while there was like everyone had a bloody kombucha brand, or craft beers, for example. Everyone was doing craft beer. You know, there's always these different trends that are coming, but like it's trying to recognize what the big trend is and leaning into it and going after it.
Yeah, going out. You know, he spotted that one in fairness.
And he that's,
but I think he spotted because he was passionate about it, Jamie. He actually believed in the specialist coffee. He believed in a better quality of coffee and that people are missing out. So I think that was easy. But I was just thinking there when you're saying that, I said this in a video yesterday, I think it was, on my Instagram stories. I was saying to somebody about just having disposable income and being able to make decisions when you're young, free and single. Okay, he was married maybe, but I'm not saying single, as in no kids. And that's the time when you can take those risks. If you had to put him with 3 kids and 10 years later, not a hope of him making even this decision to leave corporate world and go into a coffee shop in a one-man band, the back of a nightclub or front of a nightclub, that just wouldn't have happened. So having the financial piece to be able to take that risk, you know, it did help him as well, which is great that he did it at the age he did it at. But you know, he wouldn't be far off. He's obviously the same age now. We were in school together, but he wouldn't be far off the same age. So late 20s, doing all that for kids come along, it was great. Delighted to have him on. I'm delighted to get that interview out, actually, you know, and let people listen to it, because I think it was a good one. Jamie, cheers always, buddy.
Yep, no worries, bud. Take care.